Hey guys, welcome to my Myunfa and Cetie Another Style review and manifestation guide. This is going to be covering over the Another Eden update for 2.2.2 and 2.2.3. This is a hype update mainly because of the Myunfa unit. She is strongly considered one of the best units, if not the best, in the game, and we'll go over the reasons why. Before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to one of my mods, CCC, the nice guy. He's been providing me with some footage over the past few videos of the units for Another Eden. It's because my main account doesn't have all the newest units available in the game, and since he plays this game more than me, he does have a lot of the units, so just want to give him a shout out. He's a really nice guy. Alright, let's get on with the video. So first off, what is new in this game? Well, there's a few new characters that are added to the dreams, Myunfa and Cetie Another Style. In the 2.2.3 update, they will include the rate-up banner for Myunfa and Lovely, and another banner for the new Manifest weapon users Anabel and Shanie. Now, for the new manifestation weapons that are being added in these two updates, there was Isuka's, Myrus, Anabel, and Shanie's, and they also added new screenplays to the theater event in Midlands, which you'll be required to have over 500 plus attendance. You can get to see how many attendance you have by talking to one of the NPCs right in front of the theaters, I believe. Now let's go over Cetie's Another Style. Cetie's Another Style comes in rarity of 5 stars. His element is fire, he's a Pierce Lance Bangle user, and his type is light. His Valor Chant, this is our Justice, will give fire type piercing attack on all enemies in form of large, and power decrease by 20% for 1 turn. You can upgrade his Valor Chant with his VC Grasta to make it so that it goes up to minus 30% and it increases its turn by 1. You can obtain his Crimson Ray Treatsy through any very hard final boss drop or hard difficulty Garuli Another Dungeon, which is about a 0.1% chance per reward slot. And you can also buy his Treatsy from the Nopal weapon shop up to 2 times. Next, these are just some recommendations that you can try to follow. You don't have to follow it if you don't agree with it, but a Power of Explosion Spear, which gives him 10 strength and 10 luck, which attributes his fire attack up to plus 30 is great. Power of Pain is also good because it'll increase his damage output when there's pain on the target. And Power of Poison, which increases his damage on a poison target, is also excellent. Now, here are his skill sets for Another Style Cetie. Some of the most noticeable skills are usually the last 2 for Another Style, so let's go over that. We have the Force Assault, which is a fire type piercing attack on a single enemy doing XL damage and on all enemies doing large damage. You'll stack something called a Photon Accelerations on the user himself, and then the added effect from the number of Photon Accelerations is that you'll gain 15 mana recovery to all allies, and then the second effect is increased critical rate by 100% for 3 moves. And the Photon Accelerations increase physical resistance up to a maximum of 2 stacks. And then his other skill, which is Blast Drive, allows him to do a fire type blunt attack on all enemies extra large, physical resistance plus 20% on all front and reserve allies for 3 turns, and all type attack plus 30% on self for 1 action. The effects and duration will increase based on his number of Photon Acceleration stack, and you can get up to 30% resistance for 5 turns at full stacks. And upon usage of the skill, he will consume all his Photon Accelerations. So overall, Cetie Another Style is a pretty decent fire unit. On his release, he's going to be pretty fire, no pun intended, but I think overall his power level does get a little bit outshined, especially with the future units coming out. But I would still say if you need a fire unit, he's totally viable, and if you love Cetie, as I know there are some Cetie lovers out there, he's a perfect candidate to fulfill your heart's desires. Alright, next up, we're going to talk about Myunfa. So she comes in rarity of 4 to 5 stars. Her element type is Earth. She's a blunt hammer bangle user, and her type is light. Her Valor Chant, the power of the reincarnated tea kettle, she'll deploy Torn Earth Stance, which is essentially the Earth Zone, which will increase the critical damage of all allies by 50% for 1 turn, which is her VC. And you can upgrade her Valor Chant with a Valor Chant Grasta to extend the effect of the critical damage for all allies up to 2 turns. You can obtain her Dijin Memoir in the Snake Liver Damaku Very Hard Another Dungeon. And just some recommendations for her Grasta. You can get her Healing Power Hammer for Tier 1, her Healing Power HP Tier 2 Grasta for Hammer users, and MP Healing Power for Hammer users for her Tier 3 Grastas if you want to build her to become a more potent support. All-arounder, semi-DPS, whatever you want, she pretty much can fill any role. And then this is her skill set. So let's just go over some of the skills that you will most likely be using. A lot of her skills are earth-based. You have Crew Teapot Smash, which is a debuffer for 15% power, small double attack, and then when you have Earth Zone active, it'll also give type resistance to all party members by 20% for 3 turns. You have a Teapot Drop that'll inflict a stun, Bunfuku Shower, which will give mana recovery and restore all status ailments to all party members. Crazy. And then you also have skills like the Dontoku Teapot, which is just a Earth AoE attack. And then we're coming to the more heavier hitters, the Refined Teapot Smash, which will do double the attack on 1 target for large and decrease their power by 20%. And if you have Earth Zone active, she'll also buff their type resistance by 25% for 3 turns. And then her other skill, Glorious Tea Ceremony, which is a buff, will give critical rate to all party members by 100% for 1 move. And if it's an Earth Zone, they'll get elemental damage of all party members increase for 50% output. These are just stacks upon stacks. Like, what was WFS thinking when they were designing Myunfa? And then finally we have the Gyokuro Smash, which is a blunt type attack, Earth attribute, and it'll deal a single target double attack that's extra large and decrease their power by 25%. When it's in the Earth Zone, it'll also increase the type resistance of all party members by 30%. Essentially, it's a more powerful Refined Teapot Smash. Alright, now let's go over Isuka's Innocence, which is the name of her weapon. Here you can see the stat attributes for her weapon. It's definitely one of the higher stats that you can obtain for swords and for Isuka herself. She gets a upgrade to Utopia, which will increase the damage of the target has pain and will have increased damage according to the number of debuffs on the enemy. And her Butterfly's Dream, so I think there's a little bit of typo on there, but it's just that the enemies will get a minus 50% pierce resistance and a minus 20% type resistance for 3 turns. Next, I'm going to break down her moveset in the fight. So for her moveset, she has no weaknesses and she's resistant to water and earth, or attributes. So her turn 1 is a Strength and Intelligence debuff, and her second skill is a single target physical damage dealing attack that'll also decrease the speed and resistance of all attribute debuff plus a pain addition to her target. Her turn 3 is a single physical attack that will also give a slash resistance debuff. Her turn 4 is a AoE water attack that will also give a strength and speeds and slash debuff to everyone. And her turn 5 is a self strength and speed buff, with her last attack being a AoE wind attribute attack. So some of the recommendations that I would provide for the Isuka Manifestation fight, if you have other units that are not mentioned here, you can still use them if they're your best unit, as long as they fulfill a similar role that the unit that is recommended has to offer. So for a fire team, if you're going to bring one, you can bring Garyu, the original, or his another style. For Garyu, he has great firepower, and his intelligence, with his increase of intelligence, will increase his magic damage output by a lot. And he also has a physical resistance buff and wind resistance buff to all allies, which is great. Renri, another style, can be used as well. Her Valor Chant is a attack buff and speed buff to all allies. She can accumulate fire resistance debuff and cycle that type of buff to allies. And she has a physical accumulation, all attribute resistance buff with a fire attribute attack for all the enemies. Basically, she's one of the hardest hitting units in Fire. Akane Another Style, great single target DPS. She can increase more of her fire attribute attacks up by herself, up to 30%, and increase her speed, furthering her DPS. You can also bring in E1 with his manifestation weapon. That's what the little asterisk is for. He has great attacks that also increase his damage. Overall, he has a strength buff on himself, and he can just dish out a lot of fire attacks. Then you have Lovely as well. She has a wind resistance buff that could help mitigate some damage. She has a strength buff, a condition recovery for all allies as well to deal with Isuka's pesky debuffs. And she can deal a good amount of damage on the outside while also furthering increasing your fire DPSs by accumulating debuffs onto the enemy. And Xion with his manifest weapon, what can I say? He's a very strong, powerful single target DPS unit. So use them. And especially if Gary Another Style, any zone units really pretty much can make a lot of these fights trivial, especially if they are not resisted by the enemy unit. For wind attackers, you can bring Isuka. Well, you have to, for obvious reasons. You can also bring Claude Original or his Another Style. His Another Style is pretty much that he provides with the wind zone buff. Yes, it'll increase the manifest fights attack only on turn 6 though, but at the end of the day, you should be able to out DPS the manifest if you have a full team squad. Felmina with her manifest weapon plus 10, she is the queen of boss killing single target DPS. Suzette manifest plus 10 is also wonderful. She does a lot of multiple attack hits that is very, very high in damage, and she can also poison the unit, which goes in hand with Felmina's manifest. Kikyu is one of the best wind DPS units. If you summoned her recently, you can use her. You can summon her ghost to avoid enemy attacks and debuffs, and you can also use her Valor Chant, which does a wind attack buff on all allies and wind resistance debuff on all the enemies. Azami, if you have her and her manifest weapon, she's a great single target elemental attacker with wind element resistance debuff. She also can attack any single target, 3 times, buffing herself. Overall solid unit. And later on, when they release Felmina Another Style, you could also bring her too. She can buff physically, increase the physical resistance of all your allies while being able to strike the enemies with wind attribute first, and she goes first no matter what. And she also applies a physical resistance debuff to them. Some of the healers that you can bring are Dinarth. He can protect all your allies with all attribute resistance buff and recovery from magic hits whenever they get hit by magic, and he increases the number of actions during another force at the speed of a 50% buff. Mario's great too because she can reduce the damage with Aurora Force. She's easy to recover by recovering the healing from the damage output that Isuka brings out, and at the same time she can recover any abnormal status that gets applied to your party. Yuna's also great too because she provides various different types of buffs and debuffs. She's pretty much the support, and she has pretty good healing output as well, especially for abnormal conditions that you'll be getting in this fight. Rosetta also has great recovery options for health for all her allies, and she can invalidate the status for 1 turn. And she's also a fire unit, so she can also provide an all attribute resistance 30% buff, and she does have intelligent buffs and physical buffs. It's just important to reduce her strength because by her 6th attack, it's going to be a wind attribute. This element can be mitigated if you run a fire zone naturally. And some of the recommended Grasta armor, if you're having trouble for this, you can equip a wind resistance Grasta through the Cat Shrine if you need to, or you can have the Garula armor from either Modern or Antiquity, which is the only available 2 ADs available currently for Another Eden Global, which provide resistance buff ups to help reduce her damage. Next, let's go over Myrus's Magic Rabbit Staff. As you can see, those are her stats on the screen, and for her enhanced stats, her Beastly Impact will now do extra large damage to all enemies, and she'll have a physical resistance of the target minus 25% for 3 turns. The power of the target will decrease by 20% for 3 turns, and the regen of all party members medium for 3 turns will be added as well. And then for her other skill, Terra Fortress, they'll be adding the intelligence of all party members will be buffed by 30% for 3 turns, and the restore health of all party members will be large as well. This manifest weapon for Myrus will actually make her become really decent. She will actually be one of the top healers in the game. Not to say that she'll beat out Mario in terms of raw healing power, but considering before to with what she has now with her manifest, she is a very viable healer if you end up not pulling any of the other healers. Anyways, let's go over her manifest weapon moveset. She is weak to nothing, and she is resistant to fire and water attributes. She has a 6-turn moveset, with the first skill doing a self-intelligence and physical resistance buff. The second one is a AoE attack that is ground attribute. She will also give a strength and physical resistance debuff to your team, and for herself she'll give herself some healing. And then she has a second turn skill, which is random use, it seems, which will just be a single physical DPS attack. Turn 3, she'll have a self-water resistance buff up, and for turn 4, she'll do a single target attack that will be a ground attribute, and she'll also recover herself and give herself intelligence. For turn 5, she'll do an AoE ground attribute magic attack, which also provides a physical strength and physical resistance debuff to your team. And finally, she'll do a single target physical attack twice on her turn 6. So, some of the party compositions for this fight, you can bring Earth Team, Nagi another style, Tiramisu, Serene with her manifest, Okido another style, Alga another style, Tuva, and Subamine. For the Wind Team, you can bring Claude's original or another style, Felmina with her manifest in her original or her another style when it's released, Suzette with her manifest weapon, Isuka with her manifest weapon, Kikyo, Claude, Azami with her manifest weapon, Vena original, or in the future when her another style gets released as well. Next we have the supports. So you can bring Myrus for the fight, obviously, Myunfa, Dunarith, Vena, Mana, Mario another original or her another style is fine too, and Yuna. Some key notes is that intelligence debuff is important for this fight because Myrus will be buffing herself quite a lot with magic, and the fight can be trivialized like most of these manifest fights if you have a proper mono team with zone provider. So if you're running Wind, you can bring Claude another style, or when Vena another style comes out in the near future, as they provide wind zones. If you have OG Vena, you could still use her too, because she also provides a earth resistance buff to help your team survive. If you're running Dunarith, he also has skills that can absorb magic attacks, while also providing resistance buff to mitigate some of the damages. Next, let's go over Anabel's manifest weapon, X Miglance. So at the time, the wiki doesn't have all the updated info, so this is taken from the Japanese wiki site. But as you can see, the last two skills will be augmented with a physical interception that's given to herself for 3 turns, and whenever she intercepts attacks, she'll recover HP for all allies when it's being activated. And then for her other skill, Holy Saver, she will gain an intelligence increase of 25% down for 3 turns on the enemies, and she will provoke all enemies, as well as having a magic interception granted for herself, and she'll gain mana recovery for all allies whenever this is activated. So she's become more of a supporty unit tank with this manifest weapon. Unfortunately, this doesn't really make her too much better. I think at this time, Right Flyer Studios wanted to give her another style all its glory, because when they released her another style, she was one of, if not the best water unit in the game. But I digress. Anyways, let's go over her moveset. So she's going to have no weaknesses, and she's going to be resistant to fire and wind. And there's going to be 2 versions of her, but we're pretty much going to be mostly focusing on the right Anabel. She has technically less health. So as you can tell, one of the units will have 4 different attacks with a interception phase. Turn 1, all allies, she'll give a physical resistance buff. Turn 2, single physical, she'll also provoke. And for herself, she'll also gain physical interceptions. During the interception phase, if she does intercept any physical attacks, she heals all allies for 100,000 health. Essentially, it's a lot, quite a bit of health for sure. Then turn 3, all allies will be buffed with a resistance buff, and healing will be granted. And on turn 4, she'll do an AoE physical attack that'll also decrease the intelligence of your party. The other Anabel will have no weaknesses and will be resistant to nothing. For turn 1, she'll have all allies with a physical resistance buff as well. Turn 2, AoE physical attack. Turn 3, she'll have an AoE magic attack. And for turn 4, she'll have an AoE no attribute attack. So, party composition for this fight. I would recommend for if you're running an Earth team, bring Nagi another style, Tiramisu when she comes out, Serene with Manifest, Primaya, Myrus another style, Lokido another style, Elga another style, Tuva with her Manifest, Tsubame. For a water team, you can run Hismena, Shanie another style, Nike another style, Melina with her Manifest, Leclerc with her Manifest, and Mighty's original Manifest, and his another style as well. For support units, you can consider Anabel, Myunfa, Yuna original or her another style, Mana, or Mario OG or her another style. So one thing to note about this fight would be, like I said earlier, to focus on the right Anabel, since the left Anabel does have a lot more HP compared to the right. On turn 3, she'll use that counter attack. Try not to hit her with anything physical or else they'll heal for a lot. And for Anabel Manifest has both physical and magical attacks, so if you can't down her by the turn 2 another force zone technique, then it'll probably be best to bring a mixed team to reduce both of their damage output. And lastly, let's go over Shanie's Aqua Garnet. This is her weapon that'll be released. It'll have 190 attack, quite a bit high, and her skills that'll be augmented are her Oasis Wave. Will have these added to it. Water type attacks for all party members will increase by 30% for 3 turns. She'll restore some HP to herself and increase damage when she's at maximum HP. So she can essentially help set up some water teams as a pseudo support DPS water unit. And then her other skill, Epic Tail, which will increase the water type resistance of minus 30% up to 3 turns now, and she'll apply a physical resistance debuff of 20% for 3 turns with a maximum stack of 3 as well. So let's go over Shanie's manifestation moveset. She's not weak to anything, and she is resistant to fire and wind. She has a 6-turn rotation. First turn, she'll do a single water attribute physical attack, and she'll decrease your water resistance and physical resistance, and it's accumulation debuff, so if you're not able to cleanse it, your team is going to get screwed. Turn 2, she'll give herself a strength and intelligence buff. Turn 3, she'll do a single water type physical attack, and again will decrease the water resistance and physical resistance of your team. Turn 4, she'll do an AoE physical attack that'll also grant stun. Turn 5, she'll do a single water attribute physical attack. Water resistance and physical resistance continue to be debuffed. And turn 6, she'll do an AoE water physical attack with HP recovery based on the number of hits that she is provided. So some of the recommendations for this fight would be, if you would like to bring an Earth team, bring Nagi another style, she's staple, Tiramisu as well, Serene, Primaya, Myrus another style, Lokido another style, Elga another style, Tuva with her Manifest weapon, and Tsubame. For water teams, you can bring Shanie, Hismena, Leclerc, Nike another style, Melina, Mighty OG or his another style. Support, Yuna OG another style, Myunfa, Mana, Bertrand, Shiana another style, Mario original or her another style. So some key points for this fight: have physical strength buffs for a physical team if you're running one, and physical resistance buffs to lower the incoming damage. Her turn 6 does an AoE water attack that also heals herself based on her intelligence value. So if you are able to bring anyone that can debuff her intelligence, it'll lower the amount of her recovery. And finally, her manifest has low amounts of health compared to other manifest fights. So if you have a zone provider, 2-turn another force is more likely to succeed on this manifest fight. Anyways guys, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It took me quite a while to do this, but it was great to see all the people hopping on the Discord, trying to pull for Myunfa. Congrats to those that got it. Keep trying for those that unfortunately did not get it. I'll see you guys in the next one, alright? Take care and have a good one. Bye-bye.